Riot has announced the schedule for the VCT 2025 season. This is a request that many people have been asking for. The off-season for the VCT for the past 2 seasons has been very long, so in the era of the VCT partnership system, we are finally getting our very first pretty short off-season. So we're going to be looking at the whole schedule as well as the revamped championship point system and talking about if this new way of doing things is the right way to go. Has Riot fixed the VCT? So this is on the official Valorant Esports website. This is Riot's official press release with everything, and we're going to go through it all, starting with the start of each kickoff tournament. Just like last year, we are having in-region kickoff tournaments for every single league. All 4 leagues will be starting on different days. The first one will be the VCT China League starting on January 11th. January 15th is EMEA. I don't know why they wouldn't just put China first just for formatting on this website, but I guess I missed that. Anyways, January 16th for the Americas and January 18th for the Pacific. I'm a bit surprised that they're starting the season in January. I'm glad they're ending it in October, but I don't know if they particularly needed to move it up a lot. I think you probably could have fit everything in if you started in February. I don't really mind that it's starting in January. It is a quiet month. Maybe they think that they can get some viewership numbers from people just not really, paying attention to any shows or movies that are coming out, because January is typically a very quiet month for those kind of things. So I can see that being the motivator, but with China starting on a Saturday, we have the Americas starting on a Friday, or on a Thursday, EMEA on a Wednesday. They seem to be the midweek league. The EMEA and Pacific is starting on the 18th, which will be a Saturday. So we're getting mostly weekend starts here. Moving on, we have the bracket for the kickoff tournament. So this is how it's going to work in every region. We're going to have the top 4 seeds have a bye round, and then we have the rest of the teams in the region over here playing against one another. And this is mainly due to the fact that if you had all teams like in this first part of the bracket, then you'll run into a situation where you actually kind of need a bye round if you have it up here, because 6 matches will become 3 matches, and then that will make the bracket all messy. So the cleanest way to do it is for the teams to have a bye round. I don't necessarily like bye rounds because I feel like the teams that don't have those, they are a lot more warmed up when they get to those teams that have just been waiting. We saw at Masters Shanghai that I think almost every top seed, aside from I think one of them, and that was 100 Thieves, all the other teams lost their matchups that were waiting for the teams from the Swiss stage. So the teams that are already in playoffs definitely suffer from that. Now this isn't nearly as egregious as that, because this is just one match before that bye round, so it's not the worst, and I think it will work better overall, and that's kind of just how they have to do the bracket with 12 teams. So we will see how this goes. It should be a very solid kickoff. Moving on, we have the full VCT schedule here. Now we have kickoff starting January 11th, ending February 7th. Had to zoom in for you guys. We have Bangkok starting February 20th to March 2nd. So we have about a 13-day break between kickoff and the first Masters of the year. Is that enough time? I guess so. It's about 2 weeks. Still seems like the beginning of this year is quite condensed. That's what I kind of thought when they first, announced this schedule. And then we have a 20-day break between Bangkok and stage 1, which gives players plenty of time to rest and get ready for the next stage. I think 20 days is a pretty decent amount of time. That's almost a month, so it makes some sense. It might end up feeling like a little long when we're actually in the season from an audience perspective, but I think for the players it is beneficial. Then we have stage 1 ending on April 25th, but then the playoff stage will go to May 16th. I'm glad that the playoffs seems like it's going to be a bit longer this time, because last year the playoff bracket just seemed to really just fly by, and teams just playing, one match after another, which definitely made for some exciting matches, but did favor certain teams. Then players get most of the second half of May off, and then June 7th will be VCT Masters Toronto, which is ending on June 22nd, which is perfect for me because I am Canadian. I very much want to attend this tournament, and I will be attending. I don't have a ticket or anything booked yet, but that is my plan. And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to make it because I have a wedding to go to in June, but it's the weekend after, and then my girlfriend's birthday is the weekend before the 22nd. So this is perfect. Thank you, Riot. Really appreciate that one. Then after Toronto, we have another 20-day break, and stage 2 will be happening on July 12th. This will last for about a month into August 15th, and then the playoffs will go to August 29th. So following a very similar pattern for stage 1 and stage 2, and this seems like there's a pretty good amount of rest time in between here, and the playoffs are longer than they were last year. At least I think so. I could be wrong on that one, but I think this schedule for the regular season stages makes a good amount of sense. And then we have Champions starting on September 12th. So we're going to have another 2-week break for players. Is that enough before Champs when you have other breaks that are about 20 days? Maybe it's a bit shorter than others, but I think when you're that deep into the season, you need a bit less prep time. I think you're pretty warmed up on things overall, but that is just my perspective. I think overall this schedule is a lot better. Ending on October 5th, I think is good. I don't know if you want to go into mid-October, because if you have the offseason become ending before September, then having, September, October, November, December off, so about 4.5 months. Last year it was 6 months, so that was even worse. So now players are going to have most of October, then November and December, and then January, about mid-January is, I assume, where the season is going to start again next year. So you got about 3.5 months, which I think is a perfect amount of time for an off-season. When you look at regular sports and how their off-season goes, it varies per sport, but I use hockey as a pretty good example of a good off-season. The Stanley Cup is awarded in June for the NHL, and then you have the rest of the summer off, and then things start in early to mid-October. So you got a decent amount of time here, and this is a similar format, and I think that this works really well. I don't exactly love starting with kickoff. I think it's better to start with something like a regular season stage to start the season, just because you're waiting for these teams all off season. You're seeing the moves that are being made. You're seeing how these new players are, being brought into these teams that you're fans of. Just because when you're in the off season, teams are making moves. Teams look completely different most of the time, and then you have a lot of anticipation for them, and then you immediately hop into a bracket, and you could get a worse matchup. You could just get unlucky. Whereas if you start with a regular season stage, you have a little bit more leeway to maybe lose your first couple matches, then be able to bounce back. But that's just my opinion. But Riot seems to always want to start with this kickoff, and it's not the worst format. It's fine. I just have my own personal preferences with that, but overall, it is a decent way to start the year. Kickoff should be really fun. A lot of teams made a lot of moves this offseason, so it's going to be very interesting to see which teams can get a running start. Now we have the last thing that I want to talk about here, and that is the brand new championship point system. Moving on to the last thing that I want to talk about, we are talking about the revamped championship point system. So this is a visual representation of how it works now. How it worked last year is that during stage 1, you got 1 point per win. In kickoff, only the winner of the tournament got points, and that was 3 points for the winner. And championship points were only distributed for the winners of Masters at the Masters events. So what they've changed this year is now the runner-ups get points, which I think is a very good change. Now we have the winner at kickoff getting 3 points, second is 2 points, and third and fourth both get 1. For Bangkok, when it gets 5, which is probably good because, winning a Masters is more important than winning a kickoff. Second gets 3 points, third gets 2 points, and fourth gets 1. Stage 1 and stage 2 work the same with 1 point per match win, same as last year. And in the stage 1 playoffs, similar system to how Masters Bangkok worked, and Masters Toronto has a bit more points for the winner, and the points are distributed all the way down to 6th place there. The winner of Masters Toronto gets 7 points, second gets 5, third gets 4, fourth gets 3, fifth gets 2, sixth gets 2 as well. That took me a long time to actually get it right, and I kind of flubbed 6th, so whatever. And then stage 2 playoffs, the winner gets 7 points, second gets 5 points, third gets 4 points, and fourth gets 3 points. Kind of curious as to why stage 2 playoff gets championship points, because that's the last bracket before champions, but I guess that's just kind of a way to, give some teams that did well in that playoff bracket a bit more of a boost. So I think this is a much better system from last year. Would it be the way I do it? Not necessarily. I think my main problem with the championship points is what they are used for. They're used for qualifying 2 champions, which is fine, but that means that these points only really matter at the end of the year. So it is important to, rank them up throughout the year, of course, but they're only really being used for that one purpose. You still have a standing system that is mostly based off of wins. At least that is the main category. I think if you're going to commit to a points way of doing things, I think you should do it as an overall standings throughout the year kind of thing versus just qualifying for the last tournament of the year. Also, some important things to note down here. We're also changing the qualification path to champions. Now 2 teams will qualify from stage 2 playoffs. All teams have a chance to grab those 2 slots no matter how you perform earlier in the season, and 2 teams qualify from championship points, valuing strong results from early in the season. So that's where these championship points come into play. Kind of interesting that only 2 teams from stage 2 playoffs are going to qualify. That is quite interesting. The important change to acknowledge here is that we're we're moving away from a full round robin spanning stage 1 and stage 2. Each stage will now divide teams into 2 groups of 6 competing in a round robin format within their group, with the top 4 teams from each group qualifying to playoffs. Groups will be shuffled for stage 2, aiming for better balanced matchups leading up to the final playoffs of the season. Playoffs will also expand to 8 teams, keeping more teams alive and in the hunt for an extended period of time. I like that change overall, but it also kind of devalues wins a little bit. It means that some teams are going to be able to just kind of coast for parts of the year and just be like, oh, well, we're already in playoffs, so it's fine. I don't know. I just don't really like that, but I'm interested to see how the whole, shuffling the groups is going to work, and, the top 4 teams from each group has to qualify. So we'll see how it works in practice. I do like the round robin setup of every team of one region is playing every team in the region, but if they're just going to do this shuffling groups format, I mean, it could work. It could work better because the whole round robin format definitely had its kinks last year. I don't know if this is the full solution, but we will see. That means 2/3 of the league will have a significantly longer season. A lot of players wanted that. They complained. And more chances to qualify for global events. Playoffs will move to a double elimination format. Thank you. With the top 2 teams getting a bye to the second round. And the bottom 2 teams starting in lower bracket with an 0-1 record. Really? That's not really how I would do it. I hated the single elimination starting of playoff brackets that they did last season. I thought it was totally unnecessary. I don't understand why you need teams to start in the lower bracket with a 0-1 record. That just seems unfair. I just don't really understand why you can't just do seeding based off of where teams are in the standings. That makes things a lot better for rewarding good teams by having them get weaker opponents at the start of tournaments. But now it just seems like you're being overly punishing to teams that weren't doing very bad, but you're making their season longer, so it's fine. I don't know. I don't love it, but again, we'll see how it works in practice, and this is just saying that the tournaments of format are going to be exactly the same as last year. Bangkok will have a Swiss stage, Toronto's has a Swiss stage, champions starting with a group stage featuring 4 team groups, followed by an 8-team double elimination playoffs. Same exact way that started last season, and I think that the global events, the format, the only one that I didn't love last year was Shanghai. It seems like Toronto's going to have the same exact thing, but that's how they want to do it. I do like the Swiss stage, but with every team not being in it and some of like the top seeds waiting with a bye round, you've heard my opinions on bye rounds, but hey, that's how it goes. Overall, this is a much better format from last year. It's longer, players are getting more rest. I think the formats in regions seem better. The championship point system is improved, still not perfect in my opinion, but this should be a pretty good year of the VCT when it comes to the format. When we don't have players and audience members complaining about the format, I think that's a very good sign. It's a bad sign when everybody is complaining about it all the time, which is what happened for basically the past 2 years. But let me know what you guys think. Is this format better? Do you think it's going to end up being worse? Do you think the longer season is going to be helpful? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.